Brad Aimone joins us this morning. He is the safety director of Central Oregon's truck company. And by the way, it's great to have Brad Bentley here with us because, we got a veteran on our hands. 21 years in the U.S. Army Special Forces and retired in '99 at the rank of Sergeant Major. Good morning to you, Brad. How are you? It's good to have you again, man. It's good to have you on. Guys, go to centraloregontruck.com and check out them over there. You can ask your questions on the Book of Face and the Tube of You. We will get them in there. How's the day going for you? Do you got any big 4th of July plans, Brad?
Just hopefully it's quiet, right? That's every truck company's hopes, right, with holiday season, heavy traffic. But, yeah, the weather's supposed to be nice. We got pouring rain yesterday and now blue skies scheduled through the weekend, so.
Wait, you mean to tell me up in Oregon they have actually precipitation? I am shocked the Pacific Northwest actually has rain. I went to the University of Washington. We used to drive down to the Oregon Shakespeare Festival on a regular basis, and I have never enjoyed rain so much because when it rains here, it's a very different kind of rain in the city of New Orleans than it is up in your neck of the woods. It actually makes the whole place smell like Christmas on a regular basis. Brad, I wanted you to take a moment before we actually jump into your role as safety director and what that means in terms of educating the people over at Central Oregon Truck. I wanted you to give people a little bit of your own background, and I think it's important too because it shows you how you can carve out a career in trucking based on and that there are skills that you transferred from your position in the military.
Yeah, my life was kind of bizarre. I actually got recruited into the force directly out of college, University of Nevada, Reno, in my freshman year, and I never looked back. I expected to stay 4 years. I ended up doing 21, and then I still hadn't finished my college degree. And I was distance learning, which this is in 1999, which that was the beginning of people doing that. It's pretty common now. But I ended up figuring out that you can make a really good money driving a truck, and I was able to finish my college degree. So I actually did that behind the wheel for Central Oregon Truck. I got my bachelor's degree in business management in 2008. And then out of the blue, the former CEO of the company wanted to rearrange the safety department. He knew I'd done a lot of training when I was in the military, and he had a vision, and so he brought me in to create it, and everything worked out, and so here I am now. I came in here in 2013, and I'm still running it now in 2025.
And by the way, you also fall into one of my favorite categories. You do speak into Deutsch, and which means I could have a very fractured conversation with you, probably much better than I am. You could definitely speak with my wife, who actually is fluent in French, by the way. As always, we have really great people here, always bury the lead. She can do that with you, and there are people in Southwest Louisiana that you would totally not understand. That's the great joke we make. Having somebody who speaks traditional French try to talk to a Cajun, it's like, I know what you're saying. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense, by the way.
Well, that's true because the Acadians, settled when the Brits kicked them out of Acadia and moved them down to New Orleans now. What's now is they speak very old French, which really hasn't changed to the way French is spoken now over in France.
Yeah, I always laugh.
Cool, actually.
I always say the Cajuns pass through Kentucky and Tennessee, and that will screw up almost anything in regards to both travel and language. And by the way, I get to say that because Kentucky and Tennessee saved the city of New Orleans' ass in 1814, so I get to pick on them because they're our friends over here.
True.
So the thing is too, and let's talk about that connection too. So you're the safety director over there at Central Oregon Truck Company, and I was kind of curious, and I want to dig into this, that a lot of people don't understand what a safety director does. Many owner-operators, they understand safety, but they don't understand what it means to actually do that. Can you talk about the day-to-day and what that means in regards to creating a culture of safety and how you have to become almost an educator, a teacher in that position, especially when you're onboarding or especially when new things change in regards to rules and regulations?
Yeah, I think our approach is kind of unique in that you got to believe, in my opinion, in the goodness of humanity, and it's not just limited to trucking, but trucking in particular because they're a remote workforce. We call them our external staff because they work remote, mobile truck. But each one of them that comes here doesn't put on their bucket list to do something wrong. I think if you become cynical and believe that people don't care. People, that's a cop-out in my opinion. Most drivers, if they deviate from what an organization's expected norms are, it's because they weren't either, the norms weren't exposed to them and explained to them in a manner that they understand and they didn't buy in, right? When I talk to the class every week and I talk to them about why do you think our safety scores are so great and why our accident rates are so low, of course they'll always say, oh, it's the management and it's the policies. I go, no, guys. I use it as a learning moment phrase. It starts with you, right? I merely monitor our metrics and I coach those that deviate from the norm, right? And then the good news is 98 or 99% of you on a day-to-day basis do the right thing simply because it's the right thing to do. Whether that's how do they operate their truck in a city, how they work at a receiver or a shipper, how they work with a DOT officer. I'm really proud of our guys and gals because they're the flag bearers for who we are as a company. Yeah, I do have the normal thing that every safety director has. These are what you got to do. This is how you got to operate the truck. This is how you got to do this. But it's really cool because, I don't have to coach very often because they do the right thing every day.
It actually sets up a nice question. We were talking with Jason of Bennett Trucking about this earlier, and I asked him a question that he actually had kind of already answered, but I wanted to make sure we were on the same page. That you often discover how to make the company better, not by studying what's wrong, but by getting up close and personal with the people that are doing things right and figuring out how it is they do it, and then using them as value lessons for everybody else. Can you talk a little bit about what you have observed from the people you're working with as a way of saying, man, I'm going to make up a name here. Franklin, he really nails it. Jane really kind of gets the ball rolling in the right direction. How can we replicate what the people who are right are doing to make sure that everybody else is right? Did you hear the question in there? Because I'm not sure I did.
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. So what we do is unique. Our orientation, for example, is 4 days long. But instead of having a dedicated orientation staff, I rotate. Like I'm teaching orientation this week because I still am a coach for drivers, even though I'm the director. And but what I do is, the organization's expected performance norms are what they are. They're written, they're documented, they're policies like every organization has. But the real intent of orientation are what I call soft skills. It's and by rotating it, so I have 6 people on my staff as coaches, and each coach we rotate every 6 weeks in there. And the people that are in the class will become your teammates for their life cycle with the company as long as they work here. And the real focus is to get to know who they are as a human being. What are their desires? What do they value? What are their wants in life? What are their family's wants? Is it money? Is it education? Is it understanding? Is it communication? And to bond with them on a human level, because then monitoring the metrics or the performance expectations become really easy because you know who they are as a person. You know their wife's name. You know how many kids they have. They know if their kids are in college, and they'll stay longer with the organization. And they'll do the right thing because they bond with you as a human being. And they don't want to let you down.
It's funny, too, because I know that, and by the way, you and I see eye to eye on this. I think the real future of trucking is to get as young of a staff as you possibly can based on the analysis you make of the quality of their character, and then create an environment by which they not only thrive but want to stay with the company, or when they do leave, actually have nothing but good to say to the next young driver they run into. Is that a fair assessment of where you stand?
Yeah. I had a guy right now, for example, he's leaving to go be an owner-operator, and he's been with us over 10 years, and I had breakfast with him, just so he knew, and he said, hey, sorry to see you go, but I obviously wish you the best. And it was interesting, just to your point, because he said, hey, just so you know, when I see a young driver out there that wants to take up flatbed work or hasn't thought about it or wants a good flatbed company, I'm pointing them your way. To me, that's a good measure in time of who we are hoping to be.
I'll tell you this, too. I'm a big fan of this as well, that you have to kind of construct the profile of the person you want to hire. That you actually, in the same way that SEOs kind of target, but, when you're online, we want to target a certain audience. So how do we create a better website? How do we create better marketing to bring those people in? It's so important to figure out who it is you want sitting behind the desk, who it is you want sitting behind the wheel. What does that look like, though, for you guys? I mean, when you've kind of put together this profile of the men and the women you want driving for Central Oregon Truck.com, when you do that, what does he or she look like? I mean, what does that person incarnate?
Well, that kind of goes. That's a great question. It kind of goes to my whole idea with a soft skill set. So how you tarp a load or how you secure a load with chains or binders or straps. That is what it is. You've got to obviously comply with 393.100. But it's what we look at for the 4 days in classes, what's their work ethic. And even ironically, even though they're going to be a solo because we don't run teams in a truck, it's how do they work in a group? What's their interaction? We have on-site dormitories for them here, and an on-site deli or grill where we have a chef that cooks breakfast, lunch, and dinner for them. And I like to go watch them there, and I really get a lot of feedback from the chef because as human beings, a lot of who we are as people is very, and I heard you talking about the great food coming up this weekend. It sounds like in New Orleans.
You're invited. It's the 23rd. It's the 23rd of July. And by the way, you are my first just absolute spot-on guest invite. We'd love to have you here. A lot of veterans issues being discussed on those couple of days, too. A lot of your people are going to be here. And by the way, I got a special place in my heart for the Army, having covered them as a reporter and having a father who actually raised us in that when I was growing up. Sorry, that was an aside mission. Sorry about that. Keep on going.
Nope. No, but that's cool. But when people break bread, you learn a lot about them. So what we really look at when you're talking about who are we looking at as a driving employee is, do they communicate well? Are they mission focused? Do they have a sense of urgency? Now, not cutting corners, but a sense of urgency to, as right now, as you guys all know, it's a tough freight climate. So that carrier that has a positive employee that's dealing with shippers and receivers and who's on time, looks presentable, doesn't look like a slob, right, is polite. That's what makes a difference. We don't hire people right out of truck school, so we just confirm that they drive the truck well on our drive test. But what we're really looking at is, are they a polished professional when it comes to doing the right thing, being where they're supposed to be, when they're supposed to be, in a polite, professional manner.
And Brad, this is Brad Bentley. I just want to ask you a question about, you're part of a bigger group now. I always butcher the name, but Dasky Companies on several flatbed carriers. And when times are tough like that, are you able to lean into the bigger network with them and share, let's call them recommended practices, not best practices from our earlier interview. But I know that's a great company. We know a lot of the other sister carriers as well.
Well, not that you should know, or maybe you don't know, but Dasky's no longer around. TFI International.
Right. TFI got
TFI
closed.
Yep.
Bought Dasky in April of 2024. Mm-hmm. They've had a very, to their credit, TFI, there's a lot of collaboration going on, but there's been no shift from who we are culturally. And we can grasp what you don't know in life, what you don't know. So you can always learn from someone that you weren't expecting to learn from. It doesn't have to be a safety professor, to be anybody. But they've been very, very open, been a pleasure to work with. So,
but you've been able to keep your core cultural individually for Central Oregon,
mm-hmm.
correct? Great.
Yeah, they have made no changes. Lisa Gonerman is the director of safety for TFI, for SFI, the U.S. branch of TFI, and she's been here a few times. She's come and sat in orientation with me. She's made some good points on how we can improve, which everybody can improve, but she's not made, well, you got to change how you're skinning the cat. So.
I have to tell you, so I love the idea, and by the way, that's the outside of the box thinking I adore, of watching people, because I'll tell you this right now, if you're interviewing somebody for a job, and you go out to eat with somebody, how they treat the waiter or waitress tells you everything you need to know about a person to some degree. Yeah. And I wanted to kind of follow that up by saying there's a lot of people who, when they're applying for a job, can perform work ethic, are really good at what I call the performance of work ethic. How do you spot a genuine work ethic? How do you spot it? And how do you spot somebody who actually is capable of work ethic and doesn't understand exactly what that should look like because they've been trained wrong or they've been brought up wrong, and you feel like you can get them there? Because I think work ethic to some degree can be trained. To some point, it is intrinsic, but there are people who possess the skill and don't know that they have it.
Yeah, there's, and that just comes down to the whole, what I know I've been saying it, the soft skills side of it. For example, our class starts every day at 6:30. So, and inevitably you'll have one or two people that will stroll in at 6:30 too. And so I always like to introduce myself on Monday morning, and if I'm not teaching that week, and I'm Brad, I'm the safety director, and oh, by the way, if a guy comes in late, I ask you a question: are you ever late to a shipper or a receiver? And I'm asking because you came in at 6:32 and class started at 6:30. Just saying, right? Think about that, and then I'll move away. Just move away from it, right? Because most people want to do the right thing, and it's really funny because that'll set the tone for the trainer to that individual in class not single them out, but just subtly watch him or her. The person that I got to pay attention, they'll correct it. The person that doesn't probably won't be getting in a truck on Thursday.
It's such a good, and by the way, actually, I can see now where you can actually have somebody who has a good work ethic, but simply doesn't understand the importance of meetings. And I know people like that. There are people who will get under a hood to work on a truck. People I know who will get on the back of a truck and unload boxes until kingdom come. We have to drag them away from the work, who often don't understand that. I wanted to bounce something against you, Brad. I'm a big believer in that in order to make a living at anything and be great at it, you have to make a fan of boredom. You have to make an ally of boredom. And that if you find yourself with nothing to do, is the ability to kind of remind yourself there's always something to do in regards to pre-trip or post-trip or any of that kind of stuff. When you talk to these folks about soft skills, which are so important to you, do you make any time to talk about what I call grinding? Because there are things that you might be really good at that you still should be practicing over and over again. Is that part of the culture at Central Oregon Truck?
Yeah, we call it perfecting your craft. And I know it's used a lot in this industry, but if you're not learning something every day, whether you're a 20-year veteran driver or a guy or gal finished truck school, right? It's time for you to turn in the keys to your truck. And to your point, I'll always tell guys, so what's your focus on for this month, this week to perfect your craft? Not the safety training that I may assign to the fleet for their monthly safety training. Where are you self-analyzing yourself as a driver? Is it city driving is your issue? Is it how many steps? Like I tell guys, monitor how efficient you are, not how quick you are, how efficient you are at tarping your load, right? Can you do it in fewer steps? Do you take fewer trips around the truck? If you don't continually self-analyze your performance, and I think that's how you fight boredom, is when you finish, tell guys when you finish, you're at the shipper and you secured it and you tarped it and you did your walk around and you went to drive and you're ready to leave. Do some thinking as you're going down the road. Okay, how did that go? What did I do right? What did I do wrong? How can I improve? And I think if people are self-critical, it's funny how if individuals in the workforce, no matter what the industry is, if they're self-critical with their daily performance, the organization will continually evolve to get and it'll be baby steps, but it'll get better every day.
A couple of pieces in there, Brad, that I want to kind of touch on. The first of which is I have another way of phrasing what you just said, which is called you need to, in terms of efficiency, you need to slow down in order to speed up. Because if we want to get this done quickly, if we take our time methodically and do it, it will be done the first time and done right. That's so important. The other thing I know that is a big deal for you is that us old guys need to embrace technology, because if we're going to get the kind of younger work staff that we want to have, so many of the young people we are onboarding, even those who have vast technical skills, have kind of grown up with the repetition of using the newest and latest technology. So it really behooves your culture from a safety standpoint and from a training standpoint to make sure that anything new that is available, you make available to the people that you're onboarding. Correct?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. So for us, technology is a big thing, and I'm a big believer in the truck company that has the youngest driving force and continually recruits that driving force will crush their opponents. And so I'm not against bringing old dogs like myself to orientation, but we, Central Oregon Truck Company, truly embrace, we partnered years ago with Alios to create our company app, and everything from when they walk in that classroom, they have the same Android tablet. It's not the one that's going to be in their truck, but it's identical to the tablet that will be in their truck. And so our HR system is on that tablet. All the carriers, we use Carriers Edge safety videos are on that tablet. The MyDrive COTC company app, which is where all the macros for the work floor, start your trip, arrive at the shipper, depart the shipper, all that's in there, all the mapping. So they, from day one in orientation, their whole reality is done on that tablet. And that just really facilitates a smooth transition on Thursday when they move into their trucks. And as you said, going to the younger population, that draws them to it. We use a whip around app, an app for pre-trips, for example. We got that actually from a guy that was in class. I'd never heard of it, and so we tested it, and the drivers love it. I'm a big believer in technology will help you attract and retain a younger driving force. And we all know unfortunately, in our industry, truck drivers are getting long in the tooth, and we have to attract those younger, early 20s, mid-20 crowd, I think, to truck driving.
Couldn't agree more. And by the way, let me do my diligence. Don't guys out there listening forget that actually Education Station, which is quickly becoming one of the longest uninterrupted segments on this show, we've been doing this for quite some time, is brought to you by Carrier's Edge. And Carrier's Edge under Jane Jazrawi is another place that has a lot of forward-thinking, technology-driven stuff. Brad Bentley has a question for you, Brad.
Now, just really a comment, talking about that investment in technology. One of the observations I've made the last couple of years during the Mid-America Trucking Show, we all know Lindsey Trent and Dave, the great work they're doing over at the Next Generation in Trucking Association. They've been bringing in hundreds of students in that Louisville area to walk around the show floor, and they kind of set up a bingo card, a scavenger hunt type thing. And one of the booths that they come by is always ours, and we have this Kenworth T680 truck that is part of Transition Trucking. And watching those students get up in the cab and crawl around, that's the one thing that jumps out at a lot of people is there are a lot of new technologies that are rolling out. The digital
They want to
mirrors.
get their hands on it.
Exactly
I mean, that's
right.
the thing. Are you finding that when you onboard a lot of these younger people, especially the ones that are fresh out of the CDL schools, that they want to get into that truck and see all the newfangled technologies and the bells and whistles inside that cab?
Yeah, well, we don't hire anybody right out of CDL school here. We require at least 1 year of over the road experience, but we do we're very lively with interacting with the public school system here in Central Oregon. So we'll go to career days at the high schools, right, and we'll take a bobtail truck over there. And to your point, it's really funny to watch because a lot of them those younger people, they don't realize what's actually in there. So we won't just sit it there. We'll actually have the tablet and let them play around with the Android tablet, and so they can. Because I'm hoping that it instills in some of them an idea that I never thought of this as a career. So,
Brad, you mentioned the average age of a driver getting a little long in the tooth, I think were the words that you
The
used.
grain in. It's I call it the grain in of the industry.
Silver tsunami. There's a lot of words for it. But I'm curious. Previous guests talked about how long it takes to get a product implemented in the industry. But have you been able to, because sounds like it's a long-term investment on your part, see the average age of your driving force reduce? Do you know what that number is, or have y'all been able to track that the last few years?
The actual metrics, but I can tell you anecdotally, which I'm very pleased with, that a guy like me, I'm coming to the end of my career at my age, but I'm real like just this week, even with a short week, we're running orientation. The young man there, he's a great example, I think, of what I hope is the future of the American truck driver. He's born in Mexico, moved to Tucson at 16, became an American citizen, super polite, into MacBooks. Just it's funny. He's like 25, not married. Just to me, he's the poster child of what I'm hoping. And I don't have the exact percentage-wise, but we have a very high percentage of younger drivers in our company. And I think our technology draws them. And ironically, it seems to me, I'm a baby boomer, obviously, but the younger generation of those mid-20s, early 20s, a lot of their beliefs on who they want to be as a society kind of mirrors my old fart generation, the baby boomer.
Oh, I got to tell you, man, these kids are great, aren't they? Go ahead. I'm sorry. These kids are great, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. I mean, they want an organization that values them. I mean, the old day, my day, you stay 30 years, you get a gold watch when you retire. And then the generations kind of drifted away from that. And it kind of seems to me these younger drivers we're getting, that's kind of what they're looking for, which it excites me because as long as trucking is what they want to do for a career, that, that means we have longevity with them, which obviously stabilizes the organization. If you have high turnover, then, which we're lucky with that. When we were training a guy or a gal over 1 year with us, our turnover is like at 45-50%, which for an irregular route over the road flatbed.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. It's good. That's really good. We got to let you go, man. Promise me, from the bottom of your heart, promise me you'll come back and we'll keep this conversation going at some point. And we'll also talk about mountain skiing because while I'm not really, right. I'm not crazy about mountain skiing, but I love cross country skiing, and I will do mountain skiing under duress. But promise me you'll come back, please, Brad.
I will, sir. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, man. This has been Education Station, brought to you by our friends at Carrier's Edge. Radio Nemo is the place to be. We made a new friend today, Brad. That's pretty good. We're going to get him down. We're going to get him down here to the studio.
Yeah, I'd love to have another Brad. Thank you for your service, Brad. Hope you'll join us on the 23rd with maybe Brad Klepper and some other Brads in the industry.
Get a whole bunch of Brads in the conversation. Thank you, Brad, very much.